Hi, kindergartners. Welcome back for chapter 11 of The Wizard of Oz. So you remember when we just left off in chapter 10, Dorothy and the Tin Woodsman and the Scarecrow and the Lion and Toto, of course, finally made it to the Emerald City, where they happened to meet the Guardian of the Gates. And remember that in the storybook, the Guardian of the Gates told them that they all must wear green spectacles. So they all were fitted for green spectacles, which we saw in some pictures. I don't know if I have it. Oh, here it is. This is a picture from this chapter, but you can really see all the main characters have their spectacles on in the storybook. We also then looked at, in the movie, this was the Guardian of the Gates. So sort of at the very entrance of the beautiful Emerald City. All right, here we go. Even with eyes protected by the green spectacles, Dorothy and her friends were at first dazzled by the brilliance of the wonderful city. The streets were lined with beautiful houses, all built of green marble and studded everywhere with sparkling emeralds. They walked over a pavement of the same green marble, where the blocks were joined together with rows of emeralds set closely and glittering in the brightness of the sun. The window panes were of green glass, and even the sky above the city had a green tint, and the rays of the sun were green. There were many people, men, women, children, walking about, and these were all dressed in green clothes and had green skin. They looked at Dorothy and her strangely assorted company with wondering eyes, and the children all ran away and hid behind their mothers when they saw the lion. But no one spoke to them. Many shops stood in the street, and Dorothy saw that everything in them was green. Green candy and green popcorn were for sale, as well as green shoes, green hats, green clothes of all sorts. At one place, a man was selling green lemonade, and when the children bought it, Dorothy could see that they paid for it with green pennies. There seemed to be no horses nor animals of any kind. The men carried things around in little green carts, which they pushed before them. Everyone seemed happy and content and prosperous. The Guardian of the Gates led them through the streets until they came to a big building, exactly in the middle of the city, which was the Palace of Oz, the Great Wizard. There was a soldier before the door, dressed in a green uniform and wearing a long green beard. "Here are strangers," said the Guardian of the Gates. "They demand to see the Great Oz." "Step inside," answered the soldier. "I will carry your message to him." So they passed through the palace gates and were led into a big room with a green carpet and lovely green furniture set with emeralds. The soldier made them all wipe their feet upon a green mat before entering the room, and when they were seated, he said politely, "Please make yourselves comfortable while I go to the door of the throne room and tell Oz you are here." They had to wait a long time before the soldier finally returned. When at last he came back, Dorothy asked, "Have you seen Oz?" "Oh, no," returned the soldier. "I have never seen him, but I spoke to him as he sat behind his screen and gave him your message. He says he will grant you an audience if you so desire, but each one of you must enter alone, and he will only admit one of you each day. Therefore, you must remain at our palace for several days. I will show you to your rooms where you may rest in comfort after your journey." "Thank you," replied the girl. "It's very kind of Oz." The soldier now blew upon a green whistle, and at once a young girl dressed in a pretty green silk gown entered the room. She had lovely green hair and green eyes, and she bowed low before Dorothy as she said, "Follow me, and I will show you your room." So Dorothy said goodbye to all her friends except Toto, and taking the dog in her arms, followed the green girl through 7 passages and up 3 flights of stairs until they came to a room at the front of the palace. It was the sweetest little room in the world, with a soft, comfortable bed that had sheets of green silk and a green velvet counterpane. There was a tiny little fountain in the middle of the room that shot a spray of green perfume up into the air, to fall back into a beautifully carved green marble basin. Beautiful green flowers stood in the windows, and there was a shelf with a row of little green books. When Dorothy had time to open these books, she found them full of strange green pictures that made her laugh. They were so funny. She opened up the wardrobe, and inside were many green dresses made of silk and satin of velvet, and all of them fit Dorothy exactly. So there's the picture again of them walking through the city to get to the actual palace. So Oz is sort of this amazing city in the middle of Oz. There we see the Emerald City, right? And then inside that city is the Wizard's Palace, which is where they happen to be waiting. Let's see. "Make yourself perfectly at home," said the green girl, "and if you wish for anything, please ring the bell. Oz will send for you tomorrow morning." She left Dorothy alone and went back to the others. These she also led to the rooms, and each one of them found himself lodged in a very pleasant part of the palace. Of course, this politeness was wasted on the Scarecrow, for when he found himself alone in a room, he stood stupidly in one spot, just within the doorway, and waited till morning. It would not rest him to lie down, and he couldn't close his eyes, so he remained all night staring at a spider that was weaving its web in the corner of the room, just as if it were not one of the most wonderful rooms in the world. The Tin Woodman lay down on his bed, by force of habit, for he remembered when he was made of flesh. But, not being able to sleep, he passed the night moving his joints up and down to make sure that they kept in good working order. The Lion would have preferred a bed of dried leaves in the forest and did not like being shut into a room. But he had too much sense to let this worry him, so he sprang upon the bed and rolled himself up like a cat and purred himself to sleep in a minute. The next morning after breakfast, the Green Maiden came to fetch Dorothy, and she dressed her in one of the prettiest gowns made of green brocaded satin. Dorothy put on a green silk apron and tied a green ribbon around Toto's neck, and they started for the throne room of the Great Oz. First, they came to a great hall in which there were many ladies and gentlemen of the court, all dressed in rich costumes. These people had nothing to do but to talk to each other, but they always came to wait outside the throne room every morning, although they were never allowed to see Oz. As Dorothy entered, they looked at her curiously, and one of them whispered, "Are you really going to look upon the face of Oz the Terrible?" "Well, of course," answered Dorothy, "if he'll see me." "Oh, he will see you," said the soldier who had taken her message to the wizard, "although he does not like to have people ask to see him. Indeed, at first he was angry and said I should send you back. Then he asked what you looked like. I mentioned your silver shoes, and he was very interested. And I told him about the silver mark on your forehead, and he decided he would admit you." Just then the bell rang, and the green girl said to Dorothy, "This is the signal. You may now go into Oz's throne room, alone." She opened a little door, and Dorothy walked boldly through and found herself in the most wonderful place. It was a big, round room with a high, arched roof, and the walls and the ceiling and the floor were covered with large emeralds set closely together. In the center of the ceiling was a great light, as bright as the sun, which made the emeralds sparkle in a wonderful manner. But what interested Dorothy most was the big throne of green marble that stood in the middle of the room. It was shaped like a chair and sparkled with gems, as did everything else. In the center of the chair was an enormous head, without a body to support it or any arms or legs whatsoever. There was no hair upon this head, but it had eyes and a nose and a mouth and was bigger than the head of the biggest giant. As Dorothy gazed upon in this wonder and fear, the eyes turned slowly and looked at her sharply and steadily. Then the mouth moved, and Dorothy heard a voice say, "I am Oz, the great and terrible. Who are you, and why do you seek me?" It was not such an awful voice as she had expected to come from the big head, so she took courage and answered, "I am Dorothy, the small and meek, and I've come to you for help." The eyes looked at her thoughtfully for a moment. Then said the voice, "Where did you get those silver shoes?" "Well, I got them from the Wicked Witch of the East when my house fell on her and killed her," she replied. "And where did you get that silver mark upon your forehead?" continued the voice. "Well, that is where the Good Witch of the North kissed me when she said goodbye to me and sent me to you," said the girl. Again the eyes looked at her sharply, and they saw that she was telling the truth. Then Oz asked, "What do you wish me to do?" "Please, can you send me back to Kansas, where my Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are?" she answered earnestly. "I don't like your country, although it is so beautiful, and I'm sure Aunt Em will be dreadfully worried about my being away so long." The eyes winked 3 times, and then they turned up to the ceiling and down to the floor, and then they rolled around so strangely that they seemed to see every part of the room. And at last they looked at Dorothy again. "Why should I do this for you?" asked Oz. "Because you are strong and I am weak, and because you are a great wizard and I am a helpless girl," she answered. "But you are strong enough to kill the Wicked Witch of the East," said Oz. "Oh no, that just happened," returned Dorothy simply. "I couldn't help it." "Well," said the head, "I will give you my answer. You have no right to expect me to send you back to Kansas unless you do something for me in return. In this country, everyone must pay for everything he gets. If you wish me to use my magic power to send you home again, you must do something for me first. Help me, and I will help you." "Oh, anything. What must I do?" asked Dorothy. "Kill the Wicked Witch of the West," answered Oz. "Oh, no, I cannot!" exclaimed Dorothy, greatly surprised. "You killed the Witch of the East, and you wear the silver shoes, which hold a very powerful charm. There is now but one Wicked Witch left in all this land, and when you can tell me she is dead, I will send you back to Kansas, but not before." The little girl began to weep. She was so disappointed. The eyes winked again and looked at her anxiously, as if the great Oz felt that she could help him if she would. "I've never killed anything willingly," she sobbed. "And even if I wanted to, how could I kill the Wicked Witch? If you, who are so great and terrible, cannot kill her yourself, how do you expect me to do it?" "I do not know," said the head, "but that is my answer. And until the Wicked Witch dies, you will not see your uncle and aunt again. Remember that the witch is wicked, tremendously wicked, and ought to be killed. Now go, and do not ask to see me again until you have done your task." Sorrowfully, Dorothy left the throne room and went back to where the lion and the scarecrow and the Tin Woodman were waiting to hear what Oz had said to her. "There's no hope for me," she said sadly, "for Oz will not send me home until I've killed the Wicked Witch of the West, and I can never do that." Her friends were sorry, but could do nothing to help her, so she went to her own room and lay down on the bed and cried herself to sleep. The next morning, the soldier with green whiskers came to the scarecrow and said, Come with me. Oz has sent for you." So the Scarecrow followed him and was admitted into the great throne room, where he saw, sitting on the emerald throne, and that's where we're stopping. This was part 1 of chapter 11. Chapter 11 is very long, so we're going to split it into 2 parts. And so basically, Dorothy finally gets in by herself to meet the Great Wizard, and he tells her no, he won't help her until she kills the Wicked Witch of the West. So she, of course, is heartbroken and goes back to her room. And that is sort of the point that we stop at. So I hope you enjoyed it, and you'll have to turn back in for part 2 of chapter 11 so you can find out what Oz has to say to the other 3 characters who are asking for his help. So remember, there is no place like home. Mwah. Bye.